Greetings. Happy Wednesday. I did make it back. All flights and everything were on time, despite thunderstorms going on, scattered everywhere. So the American airline industry, much panned, and usually very deservedly so, in this case, did a banger for the Deace family here the last couple of days, both to Nashville and back. Want to thank the team at TBN and Kirk Cameron Show in particular for being incredible hosts for us. And I'll let you know when that episode's going to air, because I don't know yet. All right. And so Kirk and I got into Richie Meets the Rainbow, the broader culture war issues at stake in the culture, and more. But it is good to be back here alongside the still suffering Todd Erzin, who refuses the most Catholic thing ever, just refuses to get a medical help. Because this is, I mean, you may just stigmata right out of your back, right here. You might just stigmata right here on the show. All right. You
Possible.
are. Todd is here to model suffering, and I'm not kidding you. I mean, I saw this guy get up and walk around, and I'm like, dude is not doing well. But he's here. He's here to suffer and make you suffer as well.
Bob saw him walking along the road. The true story, he told me this. Todd is not going to tell this story, so I'm going to. Bob, our friend Bob Vanderplatz, saw him walking along the road and thought he had gotten, carjacked.
Oh, man. Yikes. And then, of course, there is Aaron McIntyre, sensitive to the needs of others, as always. Good to see nothing's changed in the 48 hours since I've seen you two. This is our very last show in this space. All right. Since Bob's moving the family leader to their own space out in the middle of literally nowhere, Iowa. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
No, it's in Ankeny, Iowa. Look it up on a map.
It's actually in Bondurant, technically, and it's in nowhere, Iowa. Nowhere.
Steve doing it actually.
Yes, it's actually in Bondurant.
You think everywhere in the world is nowhere that's not 10 minutes from
Well,
your
that
house.
part is accurate and true, but in this case, it's doubly true because that's true by my standard, and it's also in the middle of nowhere standard. All right, so we have to get out of here. All right, so the Blaze has sent an army of people here. It looks like everyone's legal. Aaron, have you checked the status of all the contractor workers here the Blaze has sent? I believe they're all legal.
I have not, but I assume that they are.
I assume that they're all legal, and the moving process has begun. So you're going to get your last live show of the week here today. It'll be your typical Wednesday. Buy, sell, or hold. Daniel Horowitz will join us in the final segment of the show for his weekly stop by the program. And then the next 2 days, while the tear down and build up is going here, the tear down here and the build up in the new place, which is literally right across the street from where we are right now, you're going to get evergreen episodes that we are excited about. All right, so you're going to get your June and July Ask Theology Thursday, Ask Me Anythings. You're going to combine into 1 2-hour episode, and you're going to get those tomorrow on the show.
And we will not be live on X the next 2 days, but the show will be posted there.
Thank you for clarifying that, too. Appreciate that. And then on Friday, our dear friend Megan Basham, who has had a good prognosis report in her battle, ongoing battle for the last year or so with cancer. She's going to join us for an interview we taped with her a few months ago on the aftermath of her phenomenal best-selling book, Shepherds for Sale, the impact it had on the church and continues to have within the church even a year after its publishing, and then ultimately where the church goes from here, since much of it has been infiltrated, it appears, by the spirit of the age. So those are the shows you're going to get the next 2 days, and then if all goes well, Monday we'll be live in the new space, same set, new space. Everything will look and sound kind of the same, although you're literally going to be in another room now, right?
I'm going to be in a different room, different backdrop, and I think maybe the wood paneling behind Todd is going to be different, but that's going to be about the only difference in the studio.
So the old radio days, the producer was in the other room.
Yeah.
All right, we're actually going to go back to the future. That's going to actually happen here.
It will be nice every now and then to be able to talk to guests off the air while you guys are on the air.
If things go sideways, are we just going to meet at midnight at the Des Moines airport and get her done?
Yeah.
Yes. The acoustics there aren't bad.
No.
Well, we did it in D.C. I don't know what the Des Moines acoustics are like, but in D.C. they turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So that keeps you guys updated on everything going on with the show today. Also with the show here moving forward over the next few days. And make sure as well you keep updated with our friends over at Preborn. And a lot of you have. Your generosity has been incredible. The partnership between the Blaze and Preborn helped to save almost 70,000 babies last year. Now, we didn't do all that heavy lifting, but we did some of that. So that was incredible generosity. You know, we're in the middle of July. We're celebrating the birth of our nation right now. There is really no better time to be celebrating birth in general and supporting Preborn than right now during this time of the year. What's the first inalienable right we commemorate this time of year? The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So as Ronald Reagan once famously said, without the right to life, all your other rights are kind of a moot point. Right? So for as little as $28, you can fund an ultrasound today that doubles a baby's chance of surviving their mom and maybe improves the chances of the baby's mom, her soul being saved as well, because something uniquely happens to people when we commit murder, especially against our own offspring. We just all witnessed this in the last election. It was the primary plank of one of the two American political parties. Murder as many of your own children as you want, whenever you want, however you want. Now, some of you can give more, and that's great. Whatever you can give, whatever your widow's mite is, all right, understand it's tax deductible, and you can trust our friends over at Preborn. They have an excellent record when it comes to integrity as well. That's why our family donates to Preborn too. If you want to join us, preborn.com/Steve is where you can go. That's preborn.com/Steve. Again, head over to preborn.com/Steve. And with that, let's get it rolling with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by I don't even understand what's going on. Here's President Trump yesterday on the matter of Jeffrey Epstein.
Why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story?
I don't understand
about how it's been handled.
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't.
Trump also added he's fine with some releases of Epstein evidence.
Credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say let them have it.
But then this morning, Trump went even further, saying in a post on Truth Social, quote, "Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I've had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history, and all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore." In completely unrelated news, here's an aerial view of Barbara Streisand's beautiful Malibu home. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson says he's okay if Ghislaine Maxwell wants to testify in front of Congress.
We should trust the American people. I believe in that principle. I know President Trump does this well, and I trust him. I mean, he put together a team of his choosing, and they're doing a great job. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
More June economic data is coming in, painting a better picture than some of the headlines yesterday. Spending in June was expected to bring about a $50 billion deficit. Instead, there was a $27 billion surplus. Wholesale prices were expected to inflate at 0.2%. Instead, there was zero inflation. Consumer price was expected to increase by 0.3%. Instead, it only increased by 0.2%. And industrial production in June ticked up 0.3% instead of the expected 0.1% gain. International news, Israel struck Syria this morning. Israel has threatened to increase its involvement in Syria and vowed to protect the Druze religious minority in South Syria, which has been under attack in recent days by militias in the area. Back at home, here's a palate cleanser with White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller.
Nobody has the right to invade our country, fill up our emergency rooms, take our health care, take our jobs, take our tax dollars, live an entire life on free welfare. You know, every illegal alien family that Joe Biden and his party imported into this country that has 5 kids, 6 kids, 7 kids, who do you think is paying for their health care? Who do you think is paying for their education? Who do you think is paying for their food, their shelter, their housing, all of it? The working and middle class of this country.
California Governor Gavin Newsom joined the Sean Ryan podcast and says he doesn't like Trump's language.
I'm an uptight bastard.
Whoops, wrong clip.
Weakness masquerading as strength. That's what I don't like about this son of a bitch. I don't. And forgive me, I know he's the president of the States. Forgive me, I didn't, yeah, he calls me new scum. Come on. I mean, how do I explain that to my kid? Now I have my kids' friends calling my kids new scum. That I get, because I was called that in 7th grade, but not by a 79-year-old. Model better, God behavior, man.
It's Jasmine Crockett O'Clock.
It's like blue states are constantly putting red states on life support, yet we got these little red states that ain't contributing nothing, but they are definitely taking up a lot of money.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, what state are you from, Jasmine?
茉莉，你来自哪个州？
And finally, a new Crichton leprechaun just dropped.
I heard the roar. I felt that roar. I knew to keep it pushing. I knew that.
Curtis Jones says he was walking near Robert Street late Wednesday when he saw people running from what appeared to be a large wild cat.
After I see the people run, I just see something big just walking, just right over here, right by the bush. It went right over here. I swear, I promise you, it went right over there. And it said, "Rawr!" And I just kept walking. I seen it, seen me, see it. So in my head, I'm like, nah, I gotta go, man. I'm out.
Rochester police say officers became aware of a video on social media that appears to show a wild cat, which some people claim is a mountain lion. RPD says it received numerous calls of reported sightings, including one near North Clinton Avenue and Robert Street just after midnight.
About like this big. Word. It was just walking, slithering like it was. I don't know, man.
A shelter in place was ordered and then lifted when RPD was unable to verify the presence of a wild animal. Police say no reports have been substantiated. Jones tells me he remains on edge.
You gotta keep this bat right here, man. I'm gonna keep this bat right here, man, just in case. I'm gonna protect this. I ain't gonna let nothing happen to us, nothing, okay? They ain't find it last night. It's still out here. It could be out here in one of these bushes or something. You know, them mountain lions, they be, wow, they be crawling and, you know, they serious.
The Monroe County Sheriff's Office assisted the investigation by using an aerial drone. The Seneca Park Zoo told 13 Wham all of its animals are accounted for.
I don't play with lions. I don't play with tigers, bears, nothing with the wild. I don't play with those. I promise you. I don't even do roller coasters. I'm good.
And that's what happened while we were away.
I'm good too after that.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to laugh too much today because I'm in a tremendous amount of pain, but I don't think we're going to be able to dodge that hurdle.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Patriot Mobile. Join the company that was one of the first to join in the fight to build America's parallel economy, where you've got an opportunity with the device we all pretty much need in modern America to thrive. That's our mobile phones. You've got an opportunity now to get everything the communist companies offer you without giving them your money to. Give it to Patriot Mobile instead, because I've seen with my own eyes, they reinvest the revenue that we give them back into the values that we have in common with them as well. All right, you can keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. They'll make it as customizable for you as possible. They have multiple different networks within their main hub, so you can switch to any of those networks that works best for you at any given time for free if you're a member. And if you're locked in to a contract you think you can't get out of, they've got ways to get around that with contract buyout programs available for you as well. So get started today with a free month of service when you use My Name Steve as your promo code at patriotmobile.com/Steve. That's patriotmobile.com/Steve, using My Name Steve as your promo code to get started with a free month of service at patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, this is going to be our last live show for 5 days. Okay, and a lot could potentially happen and or change on the Epstein front in the last 5 days. I will tell you, I've talked to people privately in the know who have told me the message has been relayed to the president about how much the base cares about this. You've seen the president's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, come out and say, hey, they're going to come forward with more disclosure on this. All right, so the concerns over this have penetrated the bubble. So I want to approach this for the next few minutes explicitly through the lens of a biblical worldview, because that's our prime directive as a show. And there may not be too many other platforms in America covering this story that will look at it from that angle. All right. We have been talking about this for 2 weeks now because primarily there's a moral principle here that's at stake. We simply cannot abide having a ruling class that uses our own children for its chew toys, playthings for its debaucheries. We can't do that. And then on top of this, have them protected by the institutions that we fund and we serve, and our belief system forged and founded, while then having them weaponized against us. That's just not sustainable as a civilization. And our founding fathers revolted for far less than that. Far less than that. So there is a moral principle at stake. If there was ever anything to radicalize on, having our children trafficked and abused by elites who hate us, who then control the institutions weaponized against us, while at the same time those same institutions are protecting them. If there was anything to radicalize on, to have a red line over, I mean, if that's not it, then there just aren't, I can't think of any reason why you would. So there's a higher moral principle at stake here. And for the most part, I would say, gentlemen, for the going on 2 weeks now, we've been talking about this, 2 weeks of shows. It has been primarily through the lens of the moral principle. And then we've looked at some of what this could do and what it might mean politically as well. Okay? Because I will tell you, politically, this is really starting to remind me a lot of April and May of 2020. And if you remember in the early days of COVID, Trump's instincts were entirely correct. Now he's getting panned by the media. We needed more ultraviolet light, hydroxychloroquine, all stuff that he said in the early days, and he was all ended up proven right about that. But something happened in the midst of those instincts that were right, where he was given some form of choice or personal information. We'll never know. My own personal theory is the medical establishment, Fauci and Birx, went to him and said, hey, if you go down this road, you're going to kill 2 million people. That'll be on your conscience. And I just think at that point, the idea of that weighed heavily on him. And he just said, I can't abide that. So here's my presidency. Do with it what you will. Because I think for someone who's a consummate deal maker like Trump, and has, as Liz Wheeler said on our show yesterday, I also cannot think of a Republican in my time as a voter. You know, when Reagan was in office, I remember it well, but I didn't look at politics at the age of 12 the way that I do now, okay? So in my time as a voter, there has never been a Republican standard bearer on a national level that comes close to serving his base as well as Trump has, to come close to being as attentive to them as Trump has been. But he's gone against his base too. And by the way, every time someone goes against their base, it's never been right. They've never been right, not one time. And it's not worked out for him, not one time. Including when Trump started going against his base in the spring of 2020 on COVID. And now he's calling, he went from, hey, we should push hydroxychloroquine, to remember when he called natural immunity a theory? Remember that? So I think Trump has shown he's a consummate deal maker, including with his own supporters, and that's been mostly to our benefit, and why he has been mostly a very good president. So what causes someone who is a consummate deal maker to not make the deal in front of him? I think for somebody like Trump, you've got to give them something that they take more personal than the deal. And I think Fauci and Birx did that. With you're going to kill 2 million people if you listen to these kooks on your own side. And so by the time we get to the middle of May, I mean, Trump is now literally using his task force hearings to literally argue against shows like mine and the very data that you guys are seeing. And you saw this again early in the primary in 23 over Operation Warp Speed. Remember when Diamond and Silk, one of them passed away, and the living member tried to bring up, I think it was the jab. He completely dismissed her at the funeral. Didn't want to hear it. Because he has a personal stake in that. So I think there's some personal stake here. I don't know what it is. Could very well be just too many different global alliances are at stake by releasing this information, and the collateral damage is too high. But in my opinion, there is a personal stake here, because he would have told us otherwise, that has caused him to now not be open for business and make a deal. Even though I know for a fact people who matter to him greatly are going to him and say, hey, we need to, listen to our base on this. People he typically listens to on choices like who the vice president nominee should be. He's not listening to them right now. I would imagine there were some people very close to the president who were like, not great, Bob, when they saw that post on Truth Social this morning. Because it seemed like at this time, it seemed like 24 hours ago, maybe we're starting to make a little progress here. So that's why I want, from a biblical worldview standpoint, I want to talk about this where President Trump is concerned for a minute. And I think really we should be very concerned about that. So first and foremost, make sure that you are praying for the president constantly. It's the hardest job in the world. And he had been doing, I think, a remarkable job for the most part until the last week and a half. You know, for years, I pushed back on these notions that he was anointed, meaning had a very specific calling from the one true God. And I still think to this day, some of the stuff that's out there about him being anointed is anywhere from cringe to creepy. To me, it was just, you know, I was going to vote for him if he won the primary all along just because he was just going to be a lot better option than Joe Biden. It wasn't any more metaphysical for me than that. And then July 13th happened. Then Trump's reaction to that moment happened. And then the way that Trump handled his business and affairs as a candidate, as a leader, from that time forward happened. And then there's the way that Trump handled his business and his affairs as a leader the moment he took, inauguration day, to watch him sit there like an Old Testament prophet and lay down ordinance in that Capitol Rotunda to Biden and Kamala right to their faces. Almost like he had just gotten, he was like a prophet just called in to confront Ahab and Jezebel with their latest treacheries right to their faces fearlessly. I now do believe that Trump has, I can no longer ignore this. I've told you guys this before. I do think something supernatural is happening, and he is a vessel for it. I do think that. And I think to deny that now would make me guilty of the reverse idolatry now, where I'm going to go with, well, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't want that to be true. Well, it doesn't fit my narrative, so let me deny what is very visibly being revealed right in front of me. Well, that's another form of idolatry, as you like to put it, Todd, when people mistake narcissism for principle, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? Too many coincidences, and you start doing the math and realize, there's only one being in the universe that masters that many coincidences, and it ain't us. So I now do believe that Trump has some level of anointing for such a time as this. I think it's the only math that adds up. It's the only math that makes sense. But here's the thing you need to remember about this, and this is what's going to set me apart from, frankly, somebody like Paula White, because that's not a branding tool to me. I take that very seriously, which is why I was hesitant to bestow it. But now that I am, you guys need to know what the Word of God has to say about this. Because it doesn't mean those who have an anointing get to tiptoe between the raindrops. It does not mean they tiptoe between the tulips. It does not mean that they are just permitted to do whatever the Sam Hill they want. That's quite the opposite. It's not what it means at all. And you need to know this. Because I think it has a potential impact for the entire country. I think COVID is an example of this. Samson was also anointed. See, the Lord will anoint whomever he wants. Often it's not the person that comes off the moral purity assembly line. Because ultimately, the Lord wants the gift giver to be glorified, not the receiver of said gift. So Samson, very troubled, complicated figure, anointed. Also, very disobedient. He was punished harshly for his disobedience. The Jewish people that he was charged with being a judge on behalf of also suffered as a result of his disobedience, because he was the leader that God anointed on their behalf, and he disobeyed. So not just Samson suffered, the people of Israel did. David, legendary, multi-generational, some of us would argue eternal level of anointing. God's perpetual kingdom that will not end. Every one of his disobediences God punished. And the Jewish people suffered as a result of his disobedience every single time too. See, the Lord chastens those whom he loves. He does justice just as well as he does mercy. And just because President Trump has some rare level of providential favor does not mean he is exempted from obedience. God is not a respecter of persons. You've heard me say that for years. So here's what I think this means for the rest of us. Just as we can be blessed through those God raises up on our behalf in their faithful obedience, means that we can also suffer through their disobedience to their calling at the same time. I believe part of President Trump's anointing is to tear down high places in our culture. It is why he has been a unique revelator. We've marveled over the years at how many people and institutions, not just here in this country, but globally, just in his mere presence cannot wait to expose themselves and their true motivations. Had they just allowed him, his existence to be the reason why, they just take off all the masks, right? We've all talked about this for the last several years. That's supernatural. But I think we should consider that in the case of Epstein here, maybe the chief of fiends, given the full scope of what he may or may not really have been involved with and with whom. I think Trump is in danger of violating his calling. And let me tell you right now, there's going to be a price to pay much higher than I'm dividing my base over this. There's a political price to pay for that. Violating your anointing, that's violating the opinion of the guy, the one here whose opinion matters most of all. So I think first and foremost, not having any idea how this is going to play out over the next few days. It's Donald Trump. It is if by the end of today's show, Donald Trump signed an executive order saying, all right, unseal, unfurl all of the grand jury testimony and everything else. I thought Charlie Kirk put out a very good list. We'll get to it in the next segment of things that Trump could do now to regain trust on this. All right. Would it shock any of us if by the end of the show today, Trump just did that? Because we've seen this before. He's dug in. Finally, he realizes, all right, that ain't going to work. All right, stop doing it. Do the opposite. We've seen that a million times. So I'm not going to make any sweeping proclamations because I have no idea. None of us do how this is going to play out over the last 5 days. What I will tell you, though, is I believe he is anointed. But I think it is for such a time as this. And I don't think it's about bringing inflation down. That's great, and lots of people could do that. But where you see unique supernatural anointing and giftedness with the presence of Donald Trump is in the tearing down of high places, the exposing of how deep the rot goes, how much our institutions are captured and given over to the spirit of the age and wickedness. And he's sheltering that now for whatever reason, or at least in danger of it. So please pray that he humbles himself, that he hears the cries and the outrages of his base. Because God will not be mocked, folks. We always reap what we sow, prince and plebe alike. You guys have any quick thoughts on that? Before we get to a more practical discussion about this, from what Charlie posted yesterday on next segment.
Lest your initial reaction is to go at Steve and say, oh, biblical analogy. Hey, well, it was just Donald Trump himself a couple days ago. I can't remember the event he was at. But where he himself said, I was saved by God. Mm-hmm. That comes with certain expectations, Donald, for you and for everybody else. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of this happening around the anniversary of the miracle in Butler, and it was a miracle. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I went back and I listened to some of the things that we said around that time. And it is clear that was really, I'll be super honest, that was the first time I just had to kind of give up and say there is something going on with this dude that is not explainable by any political force. There's something different going on here. And so I do believe that as well. Now I was still skeptical back then, but I had to kind of give up. So I don't quibble with any of the meta-analysis that you just provided.
Yeah, because I think we're kind of just beyond Pam Bondi putting out like any names. I mean, more video footage, more evidence of the video footage we've been shown being edited even more thoroughly than we originally even discovered against their will. It was, right? Okay. I think we're going to need now like raw information, raw, natural resources here more than some filtered report. I thought Charlie came up with a good list of what that could potentially look like. Let's go over that here, and I'm going to share that with you and get Todd and Aaron's take next. Back here on the Steve Deace Show, we're powered by our friends over at Freedom Project Academy. Did you hear what Liz Wheeler said on the show yesterday? I mean, listen, an entire generation of people have been indoctrinated into communism. That's what's happening with Zoran in New York City and Omar there now in Minneapolis, just a few hours north of where we're at today. So where do you think these voters learned that communism was good? It came from the leftist-controlled institutions of no learning. All right. So this is where Freedom Project Academy comes in. They've perfected the art of online learning for 15 years. They offer live, anytime homeschool courses for students in kindergarten through high school, built with the full scope of history on Judeo-Christian values. You'll learn how to think, not what to think. So critical thinking is not only allowed, it is incentivized and encouraged. But time is running out to ensure your children are going to have the best chance at the brightest future they can. So go to freedomforschool.com, save 15% on all courses when you use the code STEVE15. That's Steve15 for 15% off all their live anytime homeschool courses. The enrollment deadline is July 25th. So don't wait. Go to freedomforschool.com right now. Use the code STEVE15 for the discount. freedomforschool.com, code STEVE15 for the discount at freedomforschool.com. But remember, deadline July 25th. All right, I saw this on X yesterday. Charlie Kirk over at TPUSA posted 10 immediate credible action items here that the Trump administration could pursue in order to win back a lot of lost trust over what's happened here the last, really for 6 months, or 5 months, beginning with the stupid binder trick that Pam Bondi tried to pull, but has been ongoing and has really reached a crescendo here in the last couple of weeks. Let's go through these just collectively. All right. Collectively, I'll list them and then give you guys' reactions, okay? A DOJ report should be issued immediately, similar to what Mike Benz, he's a very well-respected researcher on the right, is advocating, which would help to trace back some of the financial ties that Jeffrey Epstein had. In other words, where did he get his money? Okay. The DOJ should move to unseal all the Maxwell grand jury testimony. Again, this is raw materials here. This is not a report, so you guys can actually see what's in there. Bring Acosta. Acosta is who organized the very first plea deal in the Bush administration with Epstein. Bring him in for a full interview to find out what he knew about Epstein working for foreign intelligences. Release I don't know what CSAM stands for, non-CSAM underlying facts around the Epstein indictment in 2019 that happened under the Trump DOJ. Because remember, they filed that indictment as
abuse materials.
Okay, thank you. All right. That was to supersede, remember, because Trump's DOJ was very condemning of the deal the Bush administration gave Epstein. So this was to supersede that. That's why Epstein was in prison. Need a full report as to why 2007, the Bush-Comey investigation of Epstein was so butchered, which led to the Trump administration then having to, we should keep in mind, Trump's administration is who was actually prosecuting Epstein in the first place. I mean, Bush and Comey were just going to let the guy go. Right. So this is, again, why expectations are so high. OK, because Trump's already demonstrated a greater level in his governance of credibility here on the Epstein front than what we had seen before. All right. Green light Maxwell to speak freely and learn what she knows. You heard in Aaron's montage, Speaker Mike Johnson saying, yes, we would bring her to hear her testimony. Number 7, get to the bottom of how Epstein got his money, gather bank records and financial statements. This I mentioned Mike Benz has been talking about this. Jason Buttrill here at The Blaze has been talking a lot about this here in the last few days as well. Number 8, release the names of prisoners on the prison floor the night that Epstein was murdered. Overrule the prisoner privacy rules. Number 9, getting the missing minutes of the prison footage. We've now gone through. Wired has now found there are more edits than even the missing edit and the 4 save points than we had before. There was another report from Wired last night showing now it's more than 3 minutes are missing from this video. Number 10, a press conference as soon as possible to explain any confusion. All right, so those are the 10 things that Charlie said are very practical and achievable that he thought the Trump administration could do to regain some lost credibility here. And let me just stop there and just get you guys' reaction to Charlie's list. What do you think?
Oh, my goodness. I have no idea how smart any of this may sound. somehow, some way, the actual releasing of Maxwell and just allowing her to speak, and whatever she is in terms of legal potential innocence, this is a woman who is likely morally guilty of something on some level, but just hearing from her with that newfound freedom and in that moment and how she handles it might be the most telling thing about all this, even more so than any documents. I'd have to look at each bullet point in depth to know further, but I do think that it's my point about this list and whether it exists at all, which is what I've been saying. And what I mean by that is like something, it's been viewed as almost like a movie theater experience, the MacGuffin. It's the thing that's hiding in a vault somewhere, and it's a list that is timeless and unchangeable, and we just know that. And I think it's far more likely that names over the course of time have come off the list, have gotten on the list. Jesse Kelly just recently pointed out that, it's likely that he was so aggressive with it because his name wasn't, but once he won again, maybe it was put on. I don't know. But I think that's the thing with any hard documents that, in a similar way to this list, have not been clearly under seal of some way and have not had access to anybody changing them or altering over time. Mm-hmm. That's why I think even getting Maxwell out and just letting her go and see what happens, and both what she explicitly says and reading between the lines of what she doesn't say or how she's blinking SOS with her eyes, I don't know. But we no matter what, we are down a rabbit hole that is dark and chilling, and we probably deserve it.
So I think the suggestions from Charlie Kirk are a good start for sure. And that's 10 solid suggestions. I kind of feel like analyzing this entire thing is like a game of Clue. Is the real perpetrator hiding in plain sight? Is it obvious but not too obvious? Or it's so bizarre. It could just be as simple as there's no there, although that would not make sense why Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. However, I'll say this, and we've got enough buy, sell, or hold suggestions. It was going to come up later anyway. If we're not already at the point, we are really quickly approaching the point where no matter what they come up with, nobody's going to believe it. That is how tarnished, damaged, shattered the FBI, DOJ's reputation already was prior to Trump.
Right.
And now with this story, they're not doing any favors with his base. Now, the broader American public, I'm still not sure what they're thinking about this, but with his base, we're rapidly approaching a point, I feel anyway, that's just me kind of looking at the landscape where he set a red line with his base this morning with that Truth Social post. And I think we're about at a point where the base might be setting a red line with his Department of Justice.
I think that's exactly correct.
And I'm not, I hate that. All three of us are pulling for him and his administration. And, I intentionally put in the good economic news there this morning because that stuff is real too. Okay. So the good things that he has done so far is real. My concern is this might cripple his ability or his effectiveness in doing and continuing to do good policy.
Yeah. So John Solomon is reporting in the last hour. Right. He's got an upcoming interview with President Trump. This topic is going to come up. John gave me one of my very first national gigs. He hired me at the Washington Times years before you guys even came to work here. Okay, so when we left WHO, he gave us one of our first big breaks over at the Washington Times. So I've known John off and on for years, solid reporter. John is claiming that President Trump is considering now naming a special prosecutor to look into these various deep state stories, Epstein included. Now, I could see this going one of two ways. I could see people having two reactions to this, and because of the broken trust, I could see both of them being valid. I could see one story being, listen, because of the broken trust, we're just going to remove this. We're making it now that the Attorney General, no one can do anything else, okay? Because the trust is so systemically broken here. There's, as Aaron, you were just alluding to, what could Pam Bondi at this point say that anybody would believe other than we're going to let you watch Jeffrey Epstein actually do the deed yourself? No one else would believe anything else she would say at this point, right? She just lost all credibility. So I could see the argument for bringing in an independent prosecutor to then go through all of this stuff, okay? And removing, taking it outside of the handful of people who... I mean, guys, how many days has it been since we've heard from Dan Bongino? Okay. What are we going on, day 4, day 5 since we've heard from Dan as the deputy director of the FBI? So believe me, there are plenty of people inside the Rubik's Cube that are not happy about how this is being handled, not just people, on our side of the window here. So an argument could be made, let's just get it outside of our own ecosystem. We'll hand it to a special prosecutor and let that person have the jurisdiction to handle it. Other people are going to say this is kicking the can down the road to absolve yourself of responsibility. Hopefully we'll forget. Okay. And then, at 11:59, Trump's last day in office, we get a special prosecutor report after everybody's already forgotten about it and moved on. I think you're going to see those two reactions to it. And I can't argue with either one's reactions to it because trust has been broken here. And that's what happens when you have a broken trust, is what you do next, short of giving people immediate satisfaction. An independent counsel, even if they're great, is not going to give you immediate satisfaction. So short of giving you immediate satisfaction, people end up just going back to their silos of what they thought about you before this happened and whether they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt or not.
Giving it to an independent counsel would be a lot more than light, and it might end up boomerang back on him later on. But right now, he's lighting himself on fire in real time.
That's a good point.
I mean, he's just on camera right now talking. He's making an understandable argument. He's saying, guys, we've fallen for this before. The Russia hoax, January 6th, all of this stuff. And it's all the stuff that his base used to rally to him and say, I will not fail in a way that I thought was never going to happen. Which is why I didn't think he could win this election. Unfailing, he came through it. That same base right now will not do it on this issue. That's his main tell.
He's offered no evidence. People like Mark Levin and Dan Bongino had already demonstrated there's at least some problem with the baseline FISA warrants here that are being requested, and by whom, from the minute that the Russia collusion story presented itself. All right. This has gone on for a couple of weeks. He himself has offered nothing. Nothing material at all. Okay, and he's completely changed his own tune from years of, listen, his administration is who prosecuted Epstein the first time because he was getting a scam deal from the Bush administration, right? So he's already demonstrated by his previous administration's actions, he's aware of the fact this guy was getting some level of protection and sheltering he should not have given, which is why they did a superseding indictment to put the guy in prison, okay? All through the last 4 years, everybody, and there's nobody that's not a major MAGA influencer or majorly involved in this administration, not on the record saying, we need to know the truth of what really happened here, and we're going to tell it to you, including the president himself. And then out of nowhere, as months go by of Pam Bondi auditioning for her future gig at Fox News, poorly, I should add, all right, as this goes on for months, out of nowhere, he just completely decides by offering us no evidence to the contrary that the whole thing was a scam, although it's not a scam by his own actions. If it was a scam, they just would have let the first Bush cockamamie plea deal they gave Epstein, they just would have let it slide. But the fact that the first Trump administration prosecuted Epstein, superseding the deal he was given before, is already indicative of the fact, for whatever reason, this guy got a deal he had no business deserving to get. Fair? So already by his own actions, this isn't true. There needs to be, what does that mean to people? Instead, I'm just going to insult some of the people that are the most loyal to me. Steve Bannon, whatever you think of him, Steve Bannon went to prison for Donald Trump. And he's one of the primary people pushing back on this right now. Steve Bannon went to prison for Trump. So, there are people pushing back on this, Mr. President, that have bled for you. You got to give them a reason why, similar to what we saw during COVID. We're being oversold. Hydroxychloroquine's a great idea. We need ultraviolet light. And then all of a sudden, here's my coronavirus task force and Anthony Fauci take control of my presidency. What? What happened here? We're watching the same. And so I think because we've lived through this before, we need an answer as to why this is happening this way again. And with all due respect, you can't run again, sir. The window, the window of your ability to leverage people is already on an expiring clock. And many of the people questioning you are going to be talking to your base long after you're gone. And they've been lied to and embarrassed already by your attorney general. So they're going to need a little bit more as to why this about face all of a sudden. And insulting them it's just not going to do. If I'm Steve Bannon, I'm like, I went to prison for you, bruh. I'm going to need a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't know Steve Bannon. I've never met him in my life. Dude, they edited me out of his show. Okay? I've got no stake here in Bannon Enterprises. But there's a dude code here. Guy goes to prison for you. He probably needs a little bit more of an answer on a global child sex trafficking ring that may involve intelligence agencies, and not to mention how many celebrities that flew on his planes and visited his island, many of which hate our guts and are opposed to us and fund every institution that's weaponized against us and apologize for it. He's going to need a little bit more like, hey, nutcase. Whole thing was a scam all along. Well, sir, if it was a scam all along, explain to us then why your administration superseded the first case of Epstein to give him more accountability if it was a scam all along. Because clearly you saw it was a scam. The scam was the other way. That's why you did what you did in 2019. Thoughts on that?
Well, and if it's a scam all along, by the way, Mr. President, and along the lines of it, the hard part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. Well, you know who these people are. It's one thing to say it politically, but in practice now, you can bring justice to bear. Arrest somebody, even if you can't get all the specifics on this. If you weren't on the list before and you are now, get Al Capone on tax evasion. They are playing an incredibly high stakes game. If we are to take you at your word about this, you got to get in the ball game in a way you haven't been in before. Otherwise, they are going to run you over. You
could also, if they had been better on accountability on multiple fronts in Pam's office, he could say, listen, we're doing this, we're doing that, this thing is not maybe what we thought it was. See, they have no credibility when it comes to accountability against the people who have scammed him and us in the past. We still don't know anything more about his shooter than we knew 10 months ago.
Exactly.
Buy, sell, or hold is next. All right, back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todders and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace, and you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Got some rookie numbers there. We got to get those up. All right, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. However, I have to say, barely a week will go by that at least a couple of you do not send me a note. Steve, I had to subscribe to your Facebook page and YouTube page again because I've been subscribed and it tells me I was unsubscribed. I get a couple of those every week. It seems. So the skullduggery continues. All right. So please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. And then also, please, if you love the podcast version, thank you. We appreciate it because you're the biggest part of our audience. So leave us a 5-star review so that everyone else knows you love us too. Sorry, don't know where that came from. You can also please hit subscribe or follow if you're on Apple iTunes. And that'll make sure that every time one of our new episodes shows up, it shows up there in your feed every single time. And we appreciate all of you that have done that for us as well as our friends over at Birch Gold. And listen, except for the last week and a half, this administration's done a great job disrupting things in our favor since it took over. But we got to remember, the rest of the world is not going to be like, hey, that's great that the U.S. is getting its head out of its rear ends. That's beautiful. What is that, Velvet? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to push back. And disruption sometimes can lead to more counter disruption as well. That's why you want to make sure you're prepared with our friends over at Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold Group. Easy for me to say. In the last 12 months, the value of gold, it's increased by 40%. So you can easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold with our friends over at Birch Gold Group. All right. You can also just buy some to store in your home safe if you want. All right. So text Steve to the number 989898 to get you started with a free info kit on gold. No obligation, just information. Text Steve to 989898. All right, and that'll get you started with the free info kit on gold with Birch Gold Group. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, you can trust them to help you take control of your savings today. So text the word Steve to 989898. At the bottom of the hour, Daniel Horowitz is going to join us. Until then, it is your turn. It is your turn to buy, sell, or hold. Actually, that's what Todd and I are going to do to your suggestions. Are we going to buy it? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to hold it? Give you a reason, maybe, or a few dozen, why we chose the way we did. We are permitted to use the hold. Pardon me again. We are permitted to use the hold, but since that is emasculating in the extreme, you shall be punished severely. And I think you're going to be punished by having to help Lindsay celebrate a mass new cadre of weapons being sold to Ukraine in the kinds of ways that Lindsay celebrates such things. Can you say Todd Erzin wargasm? I think you can. I think you can.
Quite certain my back could not take that.
Nice. You may have an excuse. You may have a tap out.
Yes.
You might. All right, Aaron, fire away, brother. We'll get to as many of these as we can. The rest we'll get to in the overtime.
We got a ton of Epstein-related submissions.
Good.
So I just chose one to stand in for all of them because we spent the entire first hour talking about Epstein. This is from Philip. This meme is a perfect representation of how the Trump administration has handled the Epstein files, and it's just Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons stepping on every single rake.
100%.
Yes.
I mean, we were talking during the break. Let's assume that this then... Let's give the president who did get shot in the face, let's give him the benefit of the doubt on this too.
Right.
Okay? And say he's right. It turns out the whole thing is a Comey scam.
Right.
Okay. Why is James Comey still free?
Exactly.
Then why hasn't he been arrested?
There's no scenario...
Why is he still free? He illegally spied on the president. He concocted according to the president then, that he spied on, he's concocted... First of all, he let Epstein go free the first time, okay, on a terrible plea deal. Then he concocted this whole idea, this hoax as well. Why is he a free man? Where are the handcuffs for James Comey? Anybody have an answer to that then? See, that's the issue. Epstein is the most high-profile example, but systemically, people want punishment, sir, for not just what was done to you, but to the rest of the country through you. And to us. And they're just not seeing it on any front anywhere. We can't even get the guys who, by the way, like Steve Friend, who showed us where all the bodies were buried and risked their own pensions and their own careers. Forget even reinstating them. Could they at least get like an honorable discharge recommendation letter from Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, so they could maybe get a job as a local sheriff somewhere in America? Haven't even gotten that. And I'm sorry, it's July 15th or 16th. There's just no excuse for it. I'm glad that Pam Bondi got rid of the charges on Kirk Moore. It shouldn't have taken Pam Bondi's credibility hitting negative integers right as the guy's trial is supposed to start. That should have happened like the first week when the J6 pardons went out. People are rightfully frustrated beyond Epstein at the lack of accountability for malfeasance, corruption, and evil. The irony. You want a meme? The meme of Chris Farley's Matthew Foley getting in David Spade's face? For God's sakes, arrest somebody, Pam!
Yes.
That to me is the meme of this, and that sums up this entire chapter. No Secret Service agents were fired? No management or officials were fired? For Spider-Man impersonator from the math club getting to 150 yards for a kill box shot? And yet they could take him out at 500 yards away? Someone explain to me how they could take him out at 500 yards away, but no one saw him just crawling around up the roof up there 150 yards out. So you get multiple shots off. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. So Epstein is the biggest cog in the wheel here. But it's just it may be the biggest spoke in the wheel, but there's an overall wheel of a lack of accountability here. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, there's a irony here, and when you say Ghislaine Maxwell didn't traffic to nobody, well, on this list, I'm frustrated with all these distractions, Russia collusion, J6. I just want to go forward and govern. He pointed out, look at all the things we're doing. Well, everybody else and all your base and your followers have that exact same frustration, but they have the opposite instinct you do. You just want to move on, giving you the maximum benefit of the doubt. They have no intention of moving on. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't just traffic to nobody, and if these are all distractions, by the way, somebody, like you said, Comey or otherwise, is guilty of the distractions. Arrest somebody.
Somebody should be. Nothing. We just had the largest invasion of our landmass in American history. We had the biggest hoax in American history, this entire last presidency. Nothing. No one did anything worthy of being arrested. Nobody did. Nobody did. Come on, man. And if I hear one more time,
well, Steve, Ghislaine Maxwell is prosecuted for trafficking to Jeffrey Epstein.
Take Ben Shapiro's next booster for him next time I hear that. You'll be even dumber. That might have been what the formal charge was. So Ghislaine Maxwell went out there, found all the girls herself, groomed all the girls herself, transported all the girls herself. Epstein abused them all himself, filmed them all themselves. And they're running in all these high-profile circles for years. No one knows, and no one else partakes. Congrats on your double-digit IQ. Kamala Harris says hello.
Next, we go to Michael Relicki, who says, if we switched from viewing Romans 8:28 as a message of hope to an example, men would change the world by no longer complaining and instead turning difficult circumstances for good.
See, the great thing about the Word of God, and this is where it doesn't change, but it changes you, but different parts of it will change you differently throughout the course of your relationship to your Maker. You'll read things, and at one stage of life, it still meant what it meant to you at that moment. But then you'll reach another stage of life, and you'll read it again. You're like, you know what? I didn't see that before. Because it's not a. First of all, I buy this. I buy it. But it's not really meant to be a bifurcation between ultimate hope and then motivation to act on your faith. It's meant to be a symbiosis of those things. You have hope that you can successfully act on your faith because you have your faith because you're in the will of God. And ultimately, it is God that determines your faith. See, it's not meant to be a bifurcation. It's meant to be a symbiosis. But because we're sinners, we often don't see those things at times. So I think that's correct. I'll buy.
Yep. Faith without works is dead. Bravo.
Next, we go to Judd Noel. Augustine's interpretation of Genesis 1 is likely the correct interpretation. He believed each day was prophetic of an epoch in covenant history. Day 1 covers the pre-flood area. So day 1 is Adam to Noah. Day 2 is Noah to Abraham. Day 3, Abraham to David. Day 4, David to Babylonian exile. Day 5, Babylonian exile to John the Baptist. And day 6, John the Baptist to the end of the world by Sellerhold.
So this is some of what Augustine described as basically amillennialism, is a summary of what you just saw. Okay. I'm going to sell only because I think it's a great explanation. It's better than one I could come up with. All right. And you guys know how much I revere Augustine, but there are just people throughout the history of the church that have, that are smarter than me as well, that have different opinions. And I'm not going to appoint myself as the final judge of this debate. I just don't believe I'm qualified to judge it one way or the other.
We'll find out one day.
Indeed. When Jack Hibbs and I did Seth Gruber, we were two of the speakers at Seth Gruber's event. a few weeks ago. You were there, Todd.
Yeah.
And Hibbs is a Jack, and you know, you guys know how much I love me some Jack Hibbs. He's America's pastor, basically. Okay. He's also a very, very committed premillennial dispensationalist. And he said something that made me laugh out loud. All right, because the whole thing was about the church basically uniting across multiple different denominational and sectarian lines, okay, to save what's left of Western civilization. And he said, he goes, listen, I'm happy to do that, and I'm not compromising it. I know there's some of you in this audience don't agree with me. That's okay. When we get raptured and we're going up to meet the Lord, I'm just going to give you a big hug and say, see, I told you, okay? I loved when he said that. It made me smile when he said that, okay? I don't know. I that makes a lot of sense to me, but I just promise you, if you spend some time studying what some of the people that don't agree with that view think, it would probably make some sense to you too, you know? So I'm going to sell, not because what you said was wrong or not smart, but just because I don't think I'm qualified to judge this fight. I just don't.
I think that's a really good answer. When I found out what you were doing, it's selling not because you disagree, but because you realize that there's other respected countries heard from on this, and that I don't have to die on this hill to be a faithful Christian. And trust this, I think you know this about my friend Steve Deace on the Steve Deace Show right now. If he thinks it's important to die on a theological hill, he will. I love
dying on hills.
Yes, he does. he loves, but he also loves offering grace where grace is needed and required. I think it absolutely is on this front. I will simply buy, just to say, amongst all the options out there, if you are going to start with one as a plumb line and move on from there, I think this is a good place to start.
Next, we go to Timothy. Great show today. You guys are awesome.
I'm going to buy. I'm going to, you know.
Great show today?
Tomorrow, the day after, for Evs.
Well,
I mean, I buy into perpetuity.
We've had some moments. Mediocre show today would have been occasionally, you know.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
that's
since this is our last, to fulfill all righteousness in our last episode within this space here, you know, there's been some moments.
They're all great. Some are just greater than others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like the last answer. Really good perspective.
Yes, some are just greater than others. Yes.
Next, we go to Catholic knighthood. If we had a moratorium on all further movie remakes of old TV shows and comics, then we will actually see some real original storytelling again. Yes, conceding the fact that all good stories are some variation of the greatest story ever told.
I think there's enough here to buy. They're just being lazy and jingoistic in order to make some money. I think there's enough thought on this one that it would be worth buying.
I'll buy as well. Now, keep in mind, Western civilization has had this happen before. Okay, I mean, you got Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, you know, because a couple of college professors over a few pints at the local pub realized, and this was in 100 years ago, realized, hey, we've kind of given up being creative here. We're just, doing the same gangland movies and stories over and over and over again. And a lot of the same points you just said.
But you're value added. You say also drink more. So, okay, fair enough.
Yes. All right. But in between lung darts. All right. But so this has happened before in terms of the West getting stale when it comes to IP storytelling. Okay. I think one of the reasons that it's happening now, the reason that it happened in Lewis and Tolkien's era is complacency. The West had created so many great stories and literatures and legacies, kind of the idea that there was just nothing left to do, so let's just keep recycling kind of what we've already done and coasting on that. Okay, in this case, we're very broken, and we don't have. Let me give you an example. I had a friend of mine, a conservative Jewish friend of mine, send me a text the other day. Absolutely incensed at the Superman movie. He said, how did a movie about a Jewish superhero, or a superhero created by Jewish immigrants starring a Jewish actor, create a movie where the whole thing is about Israel and Gaza? And I said to him, what? And he pointed out the war that takes place, that Superman stops. And I'm like, You mean the war with the countries that's right out of the comics that is laid out exactly the way the comics did like 30 years ago. And at the end of the movie, Lex Luthor admits the whole war was a scam, and there was no point to it at all. And the whole thing was just done to cause Superman to act in ways that would make him look like a potential enemy of nation's sovereignty and a vigilante that just takes the law into his own hands. So the war was pointless? You mean that war? He was like, oh. My point is, this is a very smart guy. And because we're so broken, I think we are having a hard time coming up with things that we just don't instantly project the current cultural climate and cold civil war into, which I think is one of the reasons why you're getting recycled bits, is because of that. All right? I don't want to even take a chance. Yet that's why a lot of the things you're getting are either woke and fail or recycled and succeed. And you're not getting a lot of originality, because I think there's a great fear that they're just coming up with something original that can reach a critical mass of audience. Exceedingly difficult given how uber politicized everything is.
Off the top of your head, what was the last original screenplay that you saw in a theater?
Sinners, I think. Remember,
was that an original?
Sinners was original. Okay. Yep. And again, Sinners is a great movie. The worldview is, but in terms of craftsmanship, it's an incredible film. I would say, The Amateur I thought was decent, but that's a redundancy of a lot of different themes. Okay, I
think the last original screenplay. So original screenplay, if I'm not mistaken, means something that was written, it wasn't based off of any source material. Right. It was written for a movie, was maybe Inception. I think Inception was an original screenplay.
Yeah, that's like a decade ago. Yeah. Actually longer, 2010 when that movie came out, something like that.
15 years ago. Next, we go to Aaron Reale, who says Major League Baseball's on-the-field tribute to Hank Aaron was one of the coolest tributes any sport has ever done.
So I was on a flight home, so I did not see any of the All-Star game.
Oh, crud. Yeah.
But I'm down. I mean, Hank Aaron is a literal legend in America. Mm-hmm. All right. Guy who faced real racism, not the fake stuff that everybody's whining about now in between their next $1 billion brand deal. Okay. The real home run king. You want to talk about one of the great athletes in American history, hitting 700 plus home runs and never hit 50 home runs one time, just every year, 30 home runs, 40 home runs every year, year after year after year after year. And in an era of the higher mound, the era of the dominant pitcher, the Koufaxes, the Gibsons, Denny McClain coming out of nowhere to win 30 games, okay? This was the era he did it in. The amount of class and dignity, Hank Aaron is just a bad man. So sight unseen, because I was on a plane last night during the All-Star game, I will buy this. Just on what you said, brother. Very bad man.
I wish I had seen it, and I currently need to see it as a palate cleanser, because when I did turn the TV on, I was exposed to a bunch of garbage music that did no justice to either Hank Aaron or anybody. So I am hearing, though, that this take is correct, that it was that part of the game was outstanding.
Next, we go to Brutus, another baseball submission. Best baseball movies of all time, this time in no particular order, for real.
Okay.
The Natural.
Bye.
Major League.
Bye.
Bull Durham.
You're just going to list
Field
all
of
them?
Dreams. I think
Bye.
so. The
Yep.
Sandlot.
Bye.
Bad News Bears.
Bye.
The Rookie. Pride of the Yankees, 61.
Bye.
8 Men Out. A League of Their Own. Moneyball, and 42. Is that basically all of the baseball movies?
I was just going to say, what are we leaving out?
It is.
So they're also the worst baseball movies, is what we're saying.
Because they're the only ones.
Yeah.
They're the only ones.
Yeah.
Are we leaving something out? I mean, there's sequels. There was like 4 other Bad News Bears movies, right? Okay.
There's a reason for this. Just like in
but those are all great movies, and there's 42. Jackie Robinson, who another just absolutely very, very bad man. Okay. Hank Aaron was just a better ball player.
In The Big Lebowski, the reason. The guys who did that? Why can't I think of the
Coen brothers?
Thank you. But they said it's bowling because they needed a sport where you can drink and smoke while you're playing it, and that's why bowling's in there. Baseball is a storyteller's sport. It's why Vin Scully is arguably the greatest of what he did and did it as long as he did, because you can just pull up and there's gaps between pitches and things like that, and the more pastoral nature of things. And now, we've psychologically and emotionally broken ourselves of being able to entertain ourselves that way because of technology and things like that. But it's right out of the gate, you are capable of you're likely to tell a much better story during a movie about baseball than probably any other sport. And that's why this is just a long list.
There are a few others, like The Babe with John Goodman, that are not on the list.
There's one I saw.
Angels in the Outfield. So there's a few more that aren't on the list.
BaseballMonkey.com has Fever Pitch and 61 in their top 10.
61 was on that list too.
No, 61 was?
Yeah, 61 was a movie HBO produced about 20 years ago on Roger Maris's season to set the all-time single-season home run record. Phenomenal movie. Yeah.
I mean, think about the other main sports. There is a singular great movie that you can think of, but the list would be much shorter for football.
Sure.
For basketball, you have Hoosiers.
Yep.
For hockey, you have Miracle.
Yep.
But after that, it gets
100%. I agree.
Much shorter.
Yep.
Let's go to Clinton, who says the surge of young men returning to Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Reformed Protestant sects shows a hunger for order in an age of chaos when every believer becomes their own pope. Sola Scriptura, without a magisterium or a Supreme Court for the church, turns divine truth into personal opinion. Just like the Constitution needs interpretation, so does Scripture without authority. You don't get liberty, you get anarchy, and young men are done with subjective relativism.
I think that's a good explanation from your particular bias. So I'll buy, because that's a good explanation of your particular bias. I would put it way more broadly because of my own bias, which is the traditions that you cited put a heavy emphasis on missiology. That meaning that you are saved for something other than fire insurance. You are saved from something other than something more than merely repairing your relationship with God. But that instead your relationship with God has been repaired for you now to be able to actually go and do the Lord's work on his behalf as originally purposed. That your saving through the second Adam, Christ, restores the dominion mandate. Now go in my name and subdue the earth. Okay? And these are traditions that put a high emphasis for different reasons. Catholics put a high emphasis on missiology as part of their soterology in ways that Reformed Protestants do not. They separate those two things. But the emphasis on missiology remains the same nevertheless. That there's more here than you walked the aisle and gave your sins to Jesus, teary-eyed once, and now go about your merry way, and Jesus will find a way just to kind of, Jeremiah 29:11 you until he calls you home. Okay? And there's way more to it than that level of evangelical algae level silliness. Okay? So that's how my bias would articulate it. But based on your bias, all right, I will buy, because I think that's a good explanation based on your bias.
Well, I'll do a devil's advocate. I will sell, only because imagine what would happen if you actually had a church in full that you were looking at. I mean, we're coming off of 12 years of Francis, and before that, the scourge of the priest abuse scandal, which wasn't unique to Catholicism. But there's a study that's actually on my X account you can go to let's not oversell what's going on here. And this study not only talks about Catholicism, but about the Protestant church as well. But the number, like for every one person who's entering Catholicism, it says like 8 are leaving. Now, they might be leaving for the same reasons in both sides, I'm bored, science. We've covered that on the show, and we will again. But let's not... I agree with you in terms of the biases as Steve talked about, but this isn't even close to what I think could be happening if we weren't just constantly being weighed down by the chaos that we've readily chosen because we're the people we've been waiting for. We've arrived to this. We're the new age of thinkers. So I don't think it's quite. Catholics should not are in no position to be cocky, is what I'm trying to say.
Thomas Massie has been passing around this discharge petition. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's how you can force a vote on a bill that leadership will not allow out of committee, the normal legislative process, okay? I've been a part of a few of those in the Iowa legislature. That's why I know about discharge petitions. So Massie has been pushing this on the Epstein files. He just picked up an interesting co-sponsor today. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah. See,
You don't get any more Trumpista than Marjorie, guys.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's not just... It'd be one thing if Marjorie was just pushing this herself, okay? It's another thing for her to sign on to Thomas Massie. At the same time, Trump is trying to push him out. Wow. That is indicative of the red line that the president is up against here. Okay? So, pray. Listen, raise your hand if you have a penis and you enjoy admitting you're wrong. I looked to and fro, the Lord said. Okay? I mean, no hands up? No hands up. No guy was like, love it, man. I love being wrong. No hands up? You know, it's going to, my inbox today. Actually, Steve, I did admit I was wrong. I mean, no, you didn't. Don't. No guy likes admitting he's wrong. Fair. Not high on the list of things guys love doing, okay? Now do it with a guy with the ego, personality, and level of significance and success Donald Trump has, all right? So probably going to take something supernatural here for him to humble himself. So I would pray. Because this thing is metastasizing now. The president cannot speak to the public on any issue without this question coming up. It's metastasizing. Okay? And it's because he's in violation, I believe, of his anointing. He was here. He's been given this providential favor to expose these things. And now he wants to cover maybe the worst example of them all. And
that's not how this works.
That's not how this works, the Lord says, man. That is not how this works. Not how this works. Samson, you want to take on Delilah and let her cut your hair and tell her things you're not supposed to, that I told you not to do? There's going to be consequences for that. Daniel Horowitz is next. In these unprecedented times, Todd, don't bend down.
Bing.
Thank you, Aaron, for pinch hitting there for our injured man over there. All right. In these unprecedented times, make sure you've got a real estate agent you can trust. Looks like, I don't know. I mean, Trump said for 2 weeks, Powell's got to go. Said this morning, Powell, I'm not firing him. Then Besson comes out and says Powell's getting replaced. I have no idea. I think everybody recognizes, though, that there's a little uncertainty there where interest rates and the Fed are concerned, right? There's a lot of uncertainty in the real estate market, mainly the uncertainty of the fact we haven't had one since the fall of 2019, okay? So make sure, because a lot's changed since then, folks, make sure you've got an agent that can help you navigate all those changes. Where would you find that agent? Well, the name kind of says it all right? Realestateagentsitrust.com, because fly-by-night moonlighters just don't cut it after all. All right, that's why you want to make sure that you get with an agent whose track record of success has been verified. Otherwise, they wouldn't get listed by Real Estate Agents I Trust or recommended to you. And a lot of times, those agents are going to come from right here in the Blaze audience. So you guys have that in common with each other as well. So whether you're moving across the country or across town, you want agents that you would recommend to others. And those are the kinds of agents we recommend to you. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com to get started today. Realestateagentsitrust.com. And we go now to the prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz. And Daniel, I have to say, we are having, since you and I discussed this a week ago Wednesday, and you and I last Wednesday began to broach the subject of how far Trump could maybe push his base here and how far they would be willing to bend. Well, brother, we've crossed the Rubicon on this now, and I said at the top of the show, it it sadly is reminding me of what happened during COVID, where Trump started out with the right instincts. He was pushing hydroxy. We need ultraviolet light. It's not as serious as what people are telling you. And then something happened. We're at it somewhere, like we thought he was good. After the 15 days, we all thought he was going to pull back and open the country back up. And then somebody got to him and everything changed at that point. And he spent much of the next 6 to 7 months fighting his own base. And saying the data people like you and I were showing people wasn't true. Natural immunity is a theory. Remember when he said that? Okay.
Yep.
And I've always, to use the word theory, I've always believed that Fauci or Birx basically told him you have 2 million people's blood on your hands if you give in, and he just didn't want that on his conscience. It was personal to him, and that's why he got invested the other way. And it feels like we're here again now, and to say to guys like Steve Bannon, and again, I've never met Steve Bannon. In fact, when our friend Chip Roy was guest hosting for him last summer and he had me on, Bannon's crew edited me out of the show. Okay, so I'm not an investor in Bannon Enterprises. I do know though, when a guy went to friggin' prison for you, and then you come back at him asking questions saying, well, I don't even want your support anymore. All right, you're just full of crap. His entire narrative on this has changed just in the last week and a half. He cannot now do any kind of a press avail, no matter what the subject is, no matter what world leader he's with, what congressional leader he's with. He is asked about this. Democrats are now attempting to play divide and conquer. Marjorie Taylor Greene is sponsoring Thomas Massey's discharge petition in the House. All right. So this is Massey that Trump is trying to push out, being assisted by one of the cheap, good sisters of the MAGA nunnery and Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's an open revolt on his hands here. And I want you to talk about where this may go politically. We've seen presidents try to do this. We saw Trump do this with COVID. He went against his base, did not work out. We saw H.W. Bush go against his base on no new taxes, did not work out. All right. We saw Mitt Romney go against his base during the entire campaign on issues like abortion and gay marriage. Remember, he wouldn't eat the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. Did not work out. Okay. So how serious is this beyond just our own internal ecosystem of our audiences who want the truth? What's the real potential political fallout of this?
Look, whenever you raise the temperature and you have this time a new revolt and next time another revolt, there's always the chance of this time could be different. But Steve, I mean, if I'm a betting man and history is on my side for 10 years of this, I kind of laugh at it because, again, to me, people have had various 10 stages of grief and triumph with Trump. I've really probably been the most consistent my whole, decade with him. He's kind of like the weather. He is very taken in by special interests. It doesn't mean he doesn't have parallel beliefs, but those special interests will always dominate. And that's what he wakes up with every day. That's why he's with, the stable coins this week and the crypto bills and the AI data centers. It's coming from somewhere. It's why, you are a cuck communist if you believed in TikTok. Remember the attacks on Nikki Haley, but then 3 seconds later, you're a cuck dog for wanting to ban TikTok. By the way, Steve, it's interesting. The DOJ ordered tech companies to defy a statute passed by Congress banning TikTok. It's funny, you can't ignore a court, but you can ignore the stronger branch of government. But my broader point is Trump's going to do what Trump does. Trump's actions don't surprise me. Obviously, the more he does this, the more it leaves people to fill in the blanks and speculate. Is he involved? Is it his donors that are involved? Is it friends that are involved? And whatever. There's no way of answering that until they're transparent about it. But as far as the revolt, I mean, maybe I'm seeing something different. I'm not really seeing it. I'm not seeing it manifest on any other playing field. I'm not seeing this crack things up. You bring in Marjorie Taylor Greene. I guess the analogy I would give is that when you construct a bomb and there's a lot of materials, there's a lot of steps to the process, and then there's pressing the button on the fuse. We have seen the bomb making against Trump by some of these figures, but we've always seen every time is that when it comes time to press the fuse, they give in. She was also blocking the crypto bill, and she gave in after a talk with him. She gave in on the fight against Mike Johnson, getting rid of him as speaker, motion to vacate when Trump called up. So I'd want to see it when it actually really will matter, if they will persist in rebellion. So far, this is nothing we haven't seen before. It has the potential to go viral. I do think he will try to diffuse it with something to the effect of a special counsel. And then also, Steve, you do have to keep in mind, there is an idolatry that is stronger than all of this. I mean, no matter how much you'll tell me there's something unique about this, and I think there is, and that is but the Democrats. And you're already hearing it. We're getting close enough to the midterms. And of course, there's no primaries, by the way. We've bypassed that. There's no primaries anymore. We don't care about that, spending the next 6 to 8 months on that. It's going to be straight to the general election. And the Democrat thing is so strong. The rally around the flag, there is no way around that.
Yeah, so Mitt Romney could have done but the Democrats. George Herbert Walker Bush had but the Democrats. It doesn't take many people. It doesn't take many people to piss off when you're dealing with the kinds of margins we are. It doesn't take many people.
But Steve, meaning what?
Meaning, hey, Mitt Romney would need a chicken sandwich. That caused our base not to.
No, I know,
4 million more white people voted for John McCain than voted for Mitt Romney. Incredibly, that happened.
Oh, you're talking about general election. Yeah,
Yes.
I think Republicans will likely lose, but I think whatever he does in Epstein or not, I think they're going to lose. I mean, historically, except for 9/11, the party in power loses. I mean, the question is how much. Tony Fabrizio has, what is it, in like 29 competitive House districts, has the most likely voters, among the most likely voters, D+7 in districts that Trump won or won marginally. I mean, that was never headed in a good trajectory. I think you're going to see that with the Virginia elections right away. But I don't view that as a rebellion is in the primaries, or you start rebelling against his legislation, his speaker, his personnel, you move in a different direction and he no longer controls the party. Him just losing in the general election, I think this could hurt a little bit and depress the base, but I think that's kind of baked in just with the economy and history. Democrats are slated to win. So I'm not exactly sure where that rebellion would play out.
So you think there's no consequences? Let me put it more broadly. Do you believe then that Donald Trump can just do whatever he wants, no matter what?
So for the last 10 years, that's essentially been the case. It doesn't mean that there's not a snapshot of time where there are some people that are disappointed in some things and some decisions, but usually there's enough of a confluence of events and actions and rallying around the flag that glosses over it. And even if it doesn't gloss over it, I am not seeing a constructive rift. Here's a consequence I do see. I don't think this is going to lead to like, yeah, you know what, Trump, your endorsements are also done by donors and your AI data centers are by donors. And this is I see it more like it's just going to foster and spiral in even more black pilling on the online right, but in a very unhealthy, unproductive way that I don't think will actually solve anything.
All right, because I agree with you that that's the minimum I think that this will cause. I agree with you on that.
For sure.
So there will be great consequences. I think we could argue whether or not any of this matters ultimately to Trump or not. Let's say someone close to him, something personal is why he has done this about face to stop this information from coming out. He's never facing the voters directly again. There are other things that he could do in the interim for the next 3 years that would cause some people to forget this and move on, things of that nature. But I've used the analogy of a bruise or a scab. Okay, a bruise and a scab indicates a place where you were hurt or injured. Now it's healed, but the fact that mark exists on your body is emblematic, is a reminder that wound, that injury once occurred. Okay, and you want to make sure you do your best when that spot's kind of tender and scabbing over, not to have that thing peeled off or to have it bang your elbow in that same spot again because it's tender there, right? Father Time is about to come for Donald Trump. He's got 3 years left. He's pushing 80. So I gave an analogy. It's kind of like summer solstice. The days are shorter today than they were June 21st. You just don't feel it yet because it's only like a couple of minutes. But 6 months from now, you're going to really sense that the days are a lot shorter, right? Well, they actually started getting shorter on June 21st. So the meter's running for Donald Trump as they would any president in his situation that's term limited out. If I wanted to maintain a place of credibility with the very kind of people that you're talking about, and that was key to me assembling, say, a future coalition. That was key to me maintaining an audience with people that are driven by this. That my audience also had to, the algorithms are pushing the Epstein thing hard against Trump. And of course, the guy that controls the most powerful public information server algorithm in the world just happened to have a falling out with Donald Trump. Okay.
He's not going to tamp that down.
No, I think if anything, it's probably been tamped up the last few days. Okay. In fact, I'm actually seeing more Epstein stuff than anti-Semitism stuff in my feed for the first time in a while. Okay. So that kind of tells you where the temperature room is going, where that's concerned. Okay. I would think though, if I wanted to have a future with this brand beyond the name Donald Trump moving forward, this is a very precarious moment for me.
I think you make a good point that he's termed out. So it's kind of like a counterfactual. We don't have if he were to run again, although I do think the idolatry of but the Democrats is so strong. It heals everything. It does. I mean, much to my chagrin, it always does. But I think I want to channel what you're saying to something more relevant that's not a counterfactual. What is the continuity of Trump's dynasty? What does that look like? So I think it kind of looks like his family, right? People like Don Jr., maybe Eric, having a future controlling the party apparatus, the money, and then relatedly, J.D. Vance. I don't see this hurting them. Because you could say Don Jr. was all in on Epstein, and now, where is he?
Then why do you think people are pushing back then? Why push back at all? Just thank you, sir. Might have another, whatever you want, Massa Trump. We'll just, whatever you throw out there, we'll just do. Then why push back at all?
Which people pushing back?
Like, I mean, listen, if you're online for 5 minutes, you can see lots of people pushing back.
So I'm not trying to say people don't believe in anything, but
we just had the biggest gathering of conservative activists that will exist until the next time TPUSA has a national meeting in Arizona in December. And that room was not full of people that were ready to just kind of move on where this is concerned. As just another example.
Sure. No. But keep in mind, if you're asking, is there going to be a rift? Meaning, are they going to say, aha, a lot of what you do, Mr. Trump, is based off of friends and donors and political interests and considerations and not putting America and Americans first. I don't really see that happening.
I agree that that's not the case. I agree that's not happening. I don't even think that's even on the table. I agree.
No. So if it's a matter of, so then why are they doing it?
You can have lots of arguments with your wife, Daniel, that don't end up in a divorce attorney's office. Lots of arguments.
No, exactly.
And they can linger and last for years and years and years and years and hinder a relationship that don't necessarily mean anybody got served papers, brother.
But if it's not at a divorce level, my point is, which it's not, I don't think that's going to be passed on to Don Jr. and JD.
Okay.
That's where I'm predicting it. I think that the perception that they're going to say is that all these guys and our guys in there really wanted it, but, they have to lie low. Ultimately, Trump's the guy. I don't think it's going to affect the trajectory that I saw this movement headed anyway. And then again, I got to say, in terms of why are they doing it, I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm not trying to be too cynical. But you got to realize, Steve, how much money do you think people get on their X monetization per month? The big names they're talking about. So I'm talking about 1 to 3 million followers, and certainly more than that. You're talking about tens of thousands a month. And it could be hundreds of thousands off of this. So it's not really a question of why you would do it. I mean, it pays. In other words, when you go back to Bush or like Harriet Meyer's moment, we didn't have such a thing where you could literally propagate words. I mean, you didn't have AI to write everything for you. By the way, AI could totally replace our entire industry, except for what a few people like me do, because it's too nuanced. And you see AI is literally spitting out the exact same things. But you had Ann Coulter and Laura Ingraham would write columns against.
I've got 20 seconds. Go ahead.
Against Harriet Miers. That took a lot more time to do. And how much money did they make off of that? Now you have the ability to monetize almost like a huge dollar value per word you propagate. Steve, I can't think in revolutionary terms beyond that when you're earning that much money off of the actual propagation.
All right. Good stuff as always, my friend. Thank you. Good to see you.
Take care.
You bet. We're short on time. You guys have any quick reaction to what Daniel just said?
Yeah, really quick. While he was talking, bellwethers that matter, names that might matter, Riley Gaines came out and says this is not good enough, Donald Trump.
Man.
That should tell you something.
And again, the pairing of Marjorie Taylor Greene, if it was anybody other than Thomas Massey, maybe a nothing burger, but that's kind of a yo in my book.
We're going to stick around, finish buy, sell, or hold for subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow with a special Evergreen edition, noon to 2 Eastern after Glenn Beck. Until then, Romans 8:28.